Good morning. I hope everyone had and hey, I can't even talk. Look, it's like 3 words in, and can't even talk. I hope everyone had a fantastic evening last night. I hope it was a very good day for you, and I hope you have a good day today. It's a brand new day. Lots of cool things can happen. Um, the old kinda like the old adage, "The world is your oyster." I don't really, kinda dip into that ideology. I think that, a day has possibilities, and it's up to each one of us to decide what we do with those possibilities. But good morning. Okay, so, I in this video, I was actually well, in the last video, I showed how to literally with just a few little commands and some copy and paste, how you can modify an existing GUI application. And I wanted to take it to the next step, which is kind of funny because something that started out as just a FOMOD utility can really grow into its own standalone app. And the way that happens is the libraries that all of these applications use. Let's see if I can find it here. All of these libraries here, every single thing here, all of these, they all have methods which gives this interface a mod manager quality. You uh, so technically, those methods, if the libraries are there, you call the method in that library, and really you can build a very basic mod manager using just those libraries, which is kind of like what this right here does. You have the ability to extract, install, report. All of that is library level. It is not application level. So any application can utilize those functions. Okay, so yesterday, uh, I had added, or I'd gone back in and I had added the ability to drag and drop, which is you just drag and drop and it decompresses the file. But I thought I was thinking last night, so towards the evening, I was thinking, well, I just wanna do some installs today and actually show how to access the check install report so you can easily check files. And I'm thinking, "Hang on a second, there's something else we can do." It's almost like we have this ability, so if, we've taken this big step from just being a FOMO to something we can drag and drop, uh, drag and drop archives and let it decompress them. So now let's just take it one little step further. What if we had a list of files and then we can selectively pick the ones we wanna build? Okay, cool. Easy enough. The libraries have functions to do all that. So let's just toss it in. I left the actual code in. It's pretty raw. There's not a lot of documentation. You can tell that I really have heavily document stuff. Oh, and you can see where I cleaned this up. Remember the 5813? I cleaned all this up. So now it has documentation. That's where I was showing you I use the folder. I use this variable here to pass information uh, back into the same function. And to show you this real quick, just to give you just kind of a brief idea, we're going to go over here to the library. This is the utilities library. And we want to find, let's see if here we go. So this is the structure. This is just a structure that has uh, variables. It's just a structure that contains variables. Basically, a structure puts all these variables under one reference. And this is what the main event queue uses. This is what it parses out. So you can see the operation code, the parameters you want to pass to those particular case statements, those function codes. And then there's other pieces of information. And when I first designed this, when I first laid this out, I thought, "Oh, what's the most generic things I can think of?" Well, we got a data object, data item, a data list, because you're always gonna wanna pass a list of items or an object may need a sub-object like an item. And, so I'm thinking, "Okay, so what's the most generic, structure I can create so that way I can use it in many different ways?" And that's what this is. So what you saw up there where I was talking about parsing out the parameters this is where it parses them out. So you put information in here. It's a library call. You put information in here. You specify information that you want to add to the queue, and then it basically just throws that in the queue. And whenever the application can get to it, that's when it processes it. So that's kind of like how that worked. But I was thinking, okay, so we've got our little mod thing here. We can drag and drop. What else could we do? Well, if you look over in the actual, this will be the release. This will be the folder I'm going to release. If you look over here, you can literally see where we kind of use this to store our extracted files. And I know this kind of looks different, but what this does is how this works, so you can kind of see why this is different than the rest of these. Like I say, you can put an absolute location in here. The reason this looks different is these are replacement parameters. So mod folder becomes a replacement parameter, download folder becomes a replacement parameter, and that's what this defines. So, whenever a game is opened, so whenever an actual game is opened, this is the game. So you can see, you got your tag games. This is the game. That's the game. So that becomes a replacement parameter called game. And then therefore you can see up or down in here. We'll go down in here. Let's see if this is Morrowind was kind of really specific. I need to find one where it replaces it. Let's see here. Here. So you can see that the registry key to access, the registry this allows access to the game files by looking at where the game is installed. And you can see there's that parameter game. So whenever the games are loaded, the available games, whenever this whole list is loaded into memory, it assigns this list to specific games, and then therefore that's the game. So what this would translate to would be, software node Bethesda, and then that would be replaced with Oblivion. That's how that works. So I need to make sure that this is defined before it's used because that's kind of like how that little parsing system works. And the whole idea behind opening a game is it literally populates the game it's a game info structure. It populates that with variables that can be programmatically used. It automatically loads files specific to that game if they exist in, let's say, the games folder, and that's what its job is. So over here, you can see if there happens to be things over here to load, like files or something, you would see it better over here. You would see it much better over here where I'm actually this is where the mod manager thing actually exists. And you can see over here there's different games and you can see the files. So it's responsible for loading files that the application creates. And that's really all Open Game does. Um, it's pretty simple. Yeah, it's there's really not much to it. So what we want to do is I thought, okay, we'll take a look over here and let's get the game configuration file that comes with the application. So we already put over here, we already put where we want to extract the mods, and you can make this anything. So you could put these back into you can make it your own custom folder. Right now they're going to go locally. They're going to go local here inside of this folder. See, so we're going to kind of take this out right now. We're going to delete this for the moment. But I went ahead and moved our test FOMOD, the good old. We're gonna lean on the strong arm of Zazay here. So here's we've got his mod in the download folder. So you can, like I say, you can make you can put this download folder anything you want. I just have the manage folder set up to be what's local to where the application is run. You can literally put a local folder. You can put a Vortex folder here if you want. You can put the download folder for Mod Organizer 2. And that way you can access all of those files if you use multiple mod managers. That's really why I did it this way. You can also put remote locations. If you've got a team working on something, you can put a remote location here and it will bring up whatever files that are there. And it basically uses kind of like the system, file access stuff. It really doesn't have a lot of custom stuff at that point, but it uses the system file access to really give you access to different files and things. Okay, so I thought I want to use this. So I was thinking, okay, we specify where we want to, where we want to extract the files, but what if we have a bunch of files we want to extract, we want to build? Well, that's easy to do. It's going to be incredibly simple to do. So we're going to use a combination of library calls, custom library calls, and we're going to have to put a little bit of coding in ourselves. Now there is some functions that actually do this for me. It's just there's so many, there's hundreds and hundreds of methods. I actually forgot some of them, and I really don't even. Yeah, the way that my brain works is I'm kind of working on something that becomes the absolute 1000% focus, and everything else kind of drops off. So, and when it comes back to remember, I have to kind of sit down and reassociate. I have to what's the word I want to use? Acclimate. I have to reacclimate to the information. Oh, on a side note, this right here is building. I'm using that tool that I put with the package that actually builds that master list. I'm doing this for Skyrim SE, and you can see that it's approaching the end. There's a lot of things to add. And I went ahead and where this locked up, this used to remember this would it was part of that same uh GUI thread, the input event thread, this input event thread here. And it would have to wait to something, it would have to wait till it got done, and then it would continue. So what I did was I simply put it on its own worker. So we're gonna just refresh the window here and you can see that it's kind of stuck doing, but it didn't lock me up. So that's how background workers they're really beneficial. So if that took an hour to run for whatever reason, I can still continue to do what I want to do. Okay. Alrighty. So back on to this. So we had it so that let's launch this off. So we had this so that we could just drag and drop. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. We've got that extra step in there. We put it as an operation code. We put it as an op code. Okay, which is here. Let's do and by doing this, I can call this opcode from anything now. I can call it from within the program. I can call it from within a script. I can call it from a menu. So that's the whole idea. This, again, is the interface between the user and whatever functions you want to provide that user. That's really all that is. If you were writing this application from scratch, you would capture the event, and then on that event, you would do certain things. And that's basically how this works. It's just everything is in a layered library now. So events are auto captured. They're generated. All the certain structures and certain values are put in that function info structure that is dropped into a queue, an event queue, and then the main application, the frameworks actually read that event queue and then just pull. They'll pull the function info out, look at it, and say, okay, this is what needs to be done. If it's something that is accounted for, it'll process it. Otherwise, it drops it off. Okay. So we already did this. So now we can call it from anywhere. We can call it. So it really opens it up. So now this is available to use. What I mean by available to use is a user who does not program can actually make use of this now. So, I'm thinking, okay, so, and I apologize for the long explanation. Okay, so now back onto this. So we already can extract it by drag and dropping. We have the opcode in there. So now we can call that opcode from a menu. Very, very easy to do. We'll go over here and I'll show you the menu. So we want to take a look at the any file. And the menus are here. See, these are the menus. This is all user configurable. So, well, I put it right here. So I thought, oh, you know what we can do, since we can, since we can drag and drop. We have a function to extract files. All we need to do now is give it a list of files, and we can select the files that we want to extract. Right? Kind of interesting because now this GUI application is now starting to add functionality. So the functionality, the we're using the libraries and a little bit of coding to actually increase the functionality. And I left the coding in the raw so I can show you how it works or how I did it. It's very, very simple to do. The extra documentation I put makes it look complicated, but it's actually super simple code wise. Okay, so by putting this in this menu, this right here is the name of the control. So in this particular control here, this is the selection list view. It's a list view. It's a control. This, I believe, is this is messages, and I think this is called this is description. This is description. This is about, I think, and this one is I forget the name of this one. This one's called banner. So these have very specific names, and it allows you to give each one of these a menu. You don't have to do anything with input events. If you type it in the text file, it should appear here. So like I say, that allows a user who's not a programmer to say, oh, you know what? When I'm up here, I want to right click on something and I want a menu to appear. You can do that. There's nothing here now. So when I right click, it looks in this file. There's nothing here for it to show. However, if you look and I right click on selections, which is here, this is called selections, you can see that it shows two menu options: special folder and downloads file, which is what I added last night because we want to extend the ability to drag and drop those archive files. So you can see right here. And you can also gate it. You can gate it behind a shift key. So if you're in here, you can literally hold down the shift key, then right click, and that will give you the shift menu. And you just put, this is just a key. It's just a text version of the key code. So if you want a control, you can put a control there if you want. Yeah, and that literally extends the menu. It gives you it lets you gate menu items that you don't really want to have direct access to right off the bat. It's something you want to do deliberately. So I want to deliberately select this option. I don't want to inadvertently select the wrong option. Okay, so back onto this. So that's how I put the menu option in. And if you notice, there's the operation code. There's no parameters going to it, and that's the icon we want to use. The icon you want to use are found here. If you look at the package, you can literally see they're all here. So this is where the menu pulls the icons from. And if there's no icon, if the menu doesn't have an icon by it, it's because the icon doesn't exist or it wasn't defined here in this menu. It keeps it very, very simple. That way you don't have to worry about assigning something. You just type in the name of the icon, and then when the menu is brought up, if it can find this icon, which always ends in ping, I think you can specify, I believe it defaults to ping, and you could probably specify JPEG or something else. I put ping because they have a transparency layer. And that's why I picked that. Um, but yeah, if this right here is not here, like if this is not here, then it's not going to show anything because it doesn't know what to show. But well, technically that's not true. It'll actually look for an icon that's named download files. It looks at the text. This allows you to specify a specific icon to use. Yeah, that's how that menu system works. So it tries to do as much as it tries to do as much as it can for you. Okay, so we have a menu option now. So now we can go in here. Let's go ahead and get this stuff out of the way. Now we have a menu option. So we can click on it and you can see download files. But now we have a menu option that points us to an opcode. So now in that case statement, we need to create, it's going to send information to that opcode. So now we need to handle that information. So I went ahead and left this pretty raw, so you can kind of see what it does. So I added this last night. And I'm thinking, okay, so what we want is basically a window or a form to show our downloaded files. Pretty simple. There's really not much to it. If you notice, I use the exact same construct, copy and paste, worker name. There's where it opens the form. So once the list is built, this is going to be called this it's going to automatically get called back to here to say, "Yep, I'm done building the list, so now you can open the form." Same, it's the exact same waiting animation, except I changed from I think it's, was it loading? I think it was loading or, something, I forget. There's different words you can use, and again, that's in the locals file. This is where you just define it, and you can hard code it. You can literally put I can put, working or waiting. I could literally just type this in if I want to. Um, you can do this. Well, not quite that, but you can do that if you want. Okay, and it'll work just fine. But it's not language specific. I mean, well, it's English, so it doesn't really give the ability to localize. By doing this, it has to look up this identifier keyword or token and then get whatever the text is. And if you look at the locals file, you'll see that the tag starts with with a language identifier, like for example ENG for English. I'm not sure what Spanish and the rest of them would be, but you would just simply make that whatever your native language is as far as the system looks at it, and then you just change the words. And now if you change the file names, keep that in mind. If you make the file names like, let's say, a Spanish name, then it's going to show up in Spanish. You have to make sure you account for that because it's the actual letters are going to be different. Okay, so there's the waiting animation. Here is I changed it to a report, right? So it's just, I call them reports. So it's the same exact copy and paste. I just changed the report thread and I changed the name. You don't have to. I did it so that variables are almost self-explanatory. It's a thread we're running and it's going to generate a report. I can just look at it and tell what it is. This is what I added. This is the raw code that I'm going to show you. There's no documentation in it. There's none of all of this stuff. And then you can see where I start the worker and I provide whatever information is in that function info that got passed to this case statement. I'm gonna send it right back. I'm gonna put it right back in that main pipeline queue, that main pipeline. I'm gonna requeue it. That's what this does. And then as the application is processing the queue, it's going to come across this very same 1800. But then when it goes down through here, it's going to say, yeah, you've got a data callback flag. So now I can open the form. And that's kind of like how that works. It's a way to coordinate between threads and the main application, independent threads. That's really what it does. So you're running in the background. When it's done, just let me know and I'll deal with the output. And that's really how that works. Okay. So let's go into the download report. Okay. It's very small. It's kind of confusing the way that everything's expanded. When I do it like this, it's very hard to see. So I kind of put this to separate things until I get like the documentation put in there. Okay, so function info, we saw what the structure looks like. I do know that sometimes the data list is used by the actual library themselves to pass information such as items you select. That's how when you go in and you select a bunch of items, it's just the selected item gets passed as a list. So whatever that little pipeline case statement is, you don't have to worry about what was selected because it gives it to you. You just have to process it. Okay, so there's the worker name. We're giving it the unique name because that unique name is associated with the progress that I can see in the application. This is all happening behind the scenes. Otherwise, it's just going to sit there and you're just going to show like a little spin waiting icon, which you see in the waiting animation. It's just going to spin, and you're not going to know how far along you are, especially if you have a lot of files. Like in my main application, I've got like a lot of files. So it can look like it's not doing anything, but it actually is. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put this in this underlying library, and that way it's there if you want to use it. And that's what I did over here. And you can see there is a progress. So the actual progress itself, it's like, oh, doesn't Windows have a progress control? Yes, it does. But this one is a little bit different because it calculates time remaining. That's what it does. You have elapsed time, time remaining. So, and what it does, it looks off of units. So, as an example, if you're copying 10 files, you can say that the maximum number I can have is 10. The current file I have is 1. That's because it's not 0 relative. That's the current one I have. It divides that out to see how far you are along, and then it says, okay, how much time has passed since the last time you called me, and then that's how it gets the time frame. So it does a little bit more than just throw up a progress bar. That's kind of like what the progress itself doesn't really do this bar thing. That's handled by the list view library. You simply tell it this field is a graph, and it does its own thing. So that's not what the progress is designed to do. It's designed to calculate information that then can be accessed by something else. So and this right here where it's got time remaining, it's not the same, and this is the same down here. So you can see it's the exact same thing down here. A time frame is calculated, and that's how you get BPS and all that. So this really goes by the size of the file, the amount of bytes that's already copied, how long that took, and then up here it goes by the files. It's not really fine grained, but it does allow you to fine grain it. So I can actually get the number of bytes I need to copy from all the files. I can just total that up, and then as files are copied, I know how many bytes were in that file. Therefore, I can use that to calculate an actual time remaining, and that would be a lot more accurate. Okay, so, but back onto this. So we have a report. A report needs to have, and the reporting, the libraries actually the utilities library is what it is. It actually does a lot of the work for you. You don't really have to set a lot of values. It does all of that. All it needs to know is what does the list view, what does the list look like? How am I going to build this list? Well, it has no idea until you tell it. So if you look here, these are all built using the exact same library call, but they all have different headers. So that is what this, not this, we need no, this. That is what this does. So this is our list. We're going to reuse this because we're going to send this back to the calling function with the callback. That's the auto callback. That's why we did it here. See, we passed it by reference. So now we're going to change some structures in this, and when the worker gets done, it's going to pass what we changed back to the main app. This is kind of like how we create that pipe. Okay, so what we're doing is I need to get the header items from this particular keyword in the locals file, and that's in here. That's where you actually define it. Let's see. Let's close this so you don't have to do that. Let's close this for now. And what we're looking for is, let's just do this the easy way. Okay. So you can see there's RPT 200. That's what you see in the title, and that is the field that you want to report on. So, and you can report on different fields depending on how you have it set up. It's very, very extensible. It lets you do a lot of different things. There are some fields you can specifically set, and then there's a database that comes where you can literally put anything in there you want, very custom fields. But we'll talk about all that stuff later. But for right now, we just want to put the headers in there. And if I want the headers left justified, because it'll actually center it by default, I just do this. So now whatever this is gets left justified. Now this is locally. This is not this is I mean, this is in the development folder. This is not over here in the release folder, which is what we're gonna fire off. Because this is actually set up to use my game config, so it's gonna take a while to load a lot of files, and for demonstration purposes, I don't really want that's not the one I wanna use. Okay, so now we have our headers in here. Now let's go ahead and get our file list. So this is again library calls, library calls. So what I'm basically doing here is saying if you didn't specify a folder that has these download files in it, I'm going to default to the manage downloads that you configured in games config. That's what limit string not empty is. So this is it was a very simple way to combine a check. So is the length of the string greater than 0? Does it equal 0? Yeah, nothing was done. So then let's give it a default string. That's really what that is. So library call, and then this gets a file list. Now, there's some flags you can pass to this, where basically, anytime you call get file list, it'll actually cache the files. It's automatic. It's done at library level, and that can kind of, in a way, can kind of be unwanted behavior because it'll actually the way that Windows records the folder changes is that if something changes directly in the root folder, then it'll update that folder. But if something changes, it'll update system information about that folder saying, this has been updated. But if you look at your timestamps. But if it's in a subfolder, the subfolder's information gets updated, but the main folder's information does not. So then that means that if you delete an item in a subfolder and you're going off of the cached list, it thinks the file's still there when it's really not. Okay, that's one of the small caveats. I'll eventually go back to take a look at that and work around that, but I just wanted to point that out. So, but you can set a flag that says you want to ignore the cache, always give me the files. And the reason the cache was in there is because some folders that has mods in it can be massive. Like, for example, let's say I want to load the actual install folder for the game. There can be tens of thousands of files in there. So I want to cache that. It makes it much faster to access, and it's easier on the hard drive. You're not constantly pounding the hard drive for file lists and things like that. Okay, so the next thing I do is I just simply want to open a progress. And all this really does in the background is add a dictionary entry, which is our name. And this is the number of entries. This is our total count. It can be file count. It can be byte count. It doesn't matter. This is just a total number. And because this eventually, right, this is divided by this number here. Whenever you set the progress, you're saying, okay, this is the progress I want to recalculate. This is where I'm currently at. So it just simply divides this. It divides this right here by this to get a percentage of how much you're done. Very simple kind of stuff. It also calculates the time remaining, but very simple stuff. So this sets that up. Okay, the next thing I want to do is, so now comes the reporting time. So I already have the file list, so all I need to do is access it. And that's what this for next loop does. Okay, just simply accesses it. Pretty simple stuff. We're going from in computer terms, it's almost always 0 relative. So it's 0. So it's even though the elements are, let's say, so 1 through 10, to the computer that's 0 through 9 because it starts at the very first position, and then it calculates where in memory to go to, either based on a pointer or the size of the string, let's say. So you got the current position size and the size of that string, and that gets you to the next string position if you have a big concurrent list of memory things like concurrent bytes. Okay, so we get the file name because we know this is a file list we got up here. So we just simply get the file name. And because it's in an array list, it comes out as an object. So we got to set it to string. And then this is where I want to create a structure that I can pass to the build. It's not building a list view, but it adds items to the list view. And it'll actually parse this out here. It parses this stuff out. So it looks at your fields and say, what do you want to report on? What do you want to report on? And I will look in the item info structure, and I would give you those fields because each one of those fields is associated with an identifier, like a percent sign D for let's say I think it's a description or display name, or I think it's this display name is what it is, and then like or N would be name, and then D would be display name. So if you notice here, we'll actually do it like this so you can see it. You can see the parameters that go into it. See, you have the group type, so it's a download file. You can call these whatever you want. I put this here because this is how there's a gating function for the menu. You just call it check, and then there's a certain check. It's an opcode is what it is, but it's in a different section than like the main processing loop. It's in the menu section, and if you can actually check to see what kind of item you have. So it's just a D file. Then I want to show this menu option. That's how you can have the same list of items in the menu, but it shows different selections depending on what you click on. That's one way it can do it. There's other ways too, but that's the way that I usually prefer. And then if you notice, let me go back and do this real quick. So the next thing it wants is the name. That's the full file name. That's exactly if you store this information in the item database, that's how it gets stored. But then you have the display name. That's the shortened name. So, for example, you can have a full file name, and then you can have a partial file name, like a relative file. That's what you want to see here. This is what you actually want to see here. And then the next, let me go here. The next feature, our next little field we have, is the type. This flag right here, the type. Each item can have certain flags associated with it. You can have result flags, action flags, different things associated with each item. So, for example, a folder name can be an item, and that folder name can have certain things associated with it. That's how I flag whether it's protected, whether it's ignored, um, active. The type flag is used to show whether an item is active or not. Okay, but we'll get into that stuff later, because it can get complicated. It's really simple though, but to understand how it's laid out can be complicated because it was kind of like how I kind of thought of doing it, and sometimes trying to wrap your mind around what someone else does can sometimes be difficult. Okay, so basically, I'm just setting up a data structure that has this type in it, file name. It shortens the file name, and I literally say it's a file name. And then I add it to the list view. So I'm building this report up. So in a sense, I have the item, I have the file name, I create a structure, and then I add it to the report. So you can see that's what I add. Item info is what I add. You can literally put a name here. Like I could put file name here if I want. They're pretty extensible in that it allows you to, a lot of the functions, quite a few of them actually, allow you to pass different types of objects to that function. It'll look at it and say, "Oh, okay, you've passed me an item info, you've passed me a text string," and it'll act accordingly because I wanted to have that kind of extensibility. Then I want to put the built item, the built item, the item we're building, which is these items here. I want to put this in a in this list because it's not really a list view item yet. It's what I call a pre-list view item. That gives me the option to go in once this is added to this list, I can pull it back out of that list, make whatever corrections I want, put it back in. So once that list is built, once the list view builds, then the changes show up. And that's how I actually do things like this. This is kind of like what you want to call post-processing. Okay, so we add it to the list, we set the progress, and that's it. Very simple loop. So to kind of quickly summarize, I clear the list out because I don't know what's in it. I put a header in the list, and the header is exactly what is used by the underlying libraries to determine what fields you want to see. I get a file list, listing of files. I don't have to put this in there, but I did. I want to keep track of the progress. So it gives me a little, so when it shows that spinning icon of waiting or whatever you put there as the word, it'll actually show a green bar going across. That's what that does. Then I loop through my list of files. I need the file name out of that list. I build a structure that I can pass to a build routine because I want to have the file name and then I want to have a partial file name. Then I set the progress to be whatever this is plus 1 because you can't really divide by 0. So this literally says 1 divided by, let's say 10, 2 divided by 10, 3 divided by 10. Then you're going to see the little green bar go across. When it's done, I want to close the progress because I don't want that in the dictionary anymore. And then we're going to do a callback. And that's it. That's pretty much it. I know it took me probably an hour to explain this, but but I wanted you to kind of see how the logic works. It's very, very simple logic. Um, okay, so what that whole thing amounts to is I have a menu option that will call an opcode. The opcode simply calls a method that we wrote in the main application, which simply generates a list of files. See, and you can see that it's centered. See, this is centered. I didn't actually put the left in there. If I put left, it'll actually move this over to the left. Okay, so what would we do next? We now have a list of files that comes from that game config file. So what we would do next? Well, we already have an opcode that will extract whatever we pass to it. So what if we passed this file name to that opcode? It'll automatically extract it. So we literally can have a list of files and we can selectively find out what we want to FOMOD build. Now, this is kind of like before we go in and install. And I'll cover that in the next video because that one, which has manifests and things like that, that one's going to be a little bit more complicated. But we're going to take the we're going to take the easiest road out, and I'll show you how to do it. It's really simple. Okay, so back to this. So now I have this, and when I built this list, it actually includes a link. The link is automatically built for you, and the link is the file name. So now in the menu, over here in this menu, all right, let's go down here to the menu. Where is the menu? Menu be here. Okay, so you see where it says extract archive? There is the check I was telling you about. See D file, that's the group. Technically, that's item ID, but if you don't set the item ID specifically, it automatically defaults to group. There's the group ID. So I know when I click on this item right here, I know that that's a D file item, and therefore I can display extract archive. And it will only do it for items that are set D file. Because if I put this here, if I'm thinking, oh, this simply means download file, that's true. But if they're not, if they weren't built that way, if the list wasn't built, if the list view or whatever list you're building, if it's not built with that identifier in it, it's not going to exist, and therefore this menu option will never show up. But what we want to do is want to pass the F link, and that's the file link. So what it does is it says, okay, there's a file here. There is a link because it's done when it's built. All that's done for you. So all I have to do is pass the file link to it. So what happens now, if I go to extract this file, you'll see it goes through the same thing, and right here you are. You're right back to this again. And then you can see your settings are still here because they're saved over here. And you can literally use this to go back in and extract any file that you want to put in your game. Now, on a side note, this really steps out. It's not out of bounds. It's however you want to do it. You're the designer. You're the coder. You're the programmer. You do it how you want to do it. My way is not, someone else's way, and that's okay. You have the freedom to design it how you want to. So the library functions are there, and you can include as many as you want. You can literally turn this into another standard, which is kind of like what we're doing. We're turning into a very, very simple mod manager, very simple. But we're using the library to do it and just a little bit of custom code. So that's this. A part of the framework. Wherever you move this to, that is exactly where it's going to stay. So you move it over here, that's what it remembers. If you open it again, that's where it's going to be. And it should be relative to the file. See, so it's relative to its parent, so it will move with its parent. Let's get this over here. We'll put this back over here, and then we will drop this, close this. All right, so that's what I wanted to show and a little bit how it works so you can kind of build it yourself. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do an install. And it's the same thing it's the same thing this quote, quote, "mod manager" does. Remember, it's just a framework. That's basically what it does. There's a menu option here. This is just a menu option that says, "I wanna install it," and that will call a library function. There's a case statement in there. It's all the same thing. I wanted to make sure it's all the same thing. So it calls a case statement that literally calls a library function. And then when it's done, the output of that library function is then thrown up on the screen, which it'll show what was in the state of that install, whether it replaced files, whether it copied files, whether it couldn't copy files, whether files are protected, things like that. All that's the libraries handle all that. I don't have to worry about it. And therefore, if you wanted to add that to any application, it's right there to use. Okay, so that pretty much is that. That would be the next step in this. And however, there's one note. There's a couple notes actually. One, uh, there is a potential that the file names can be too long. I'll have to take a look at that. There's a lot of layering going on, so it's not as easy as just going in and checking something. I came across that earlier when I wanted to build something in my what do you want to call this? My uh, working. It's where I compile the code. It's like my working folder, um, my development folder, you can call it. Um, I encountered file names that were too long, and I actually accounted for them, but they're not accounted in every function, therefore, yeah, it didn't quite fully work, so you have to watch out for that. Um, Most time you won't really come across that depending on where you store where you store your files and where you store your applications. Um, yeah, so that was kinda like one thing. Um The other thing kind of eludes me at the moment. Probably need more coffee this morning, but that's a lot of information. So hopefully something in there you can use uh, to kind of take something because you can take something I write and you can literally add little things to it and make it what you want. The libraries do that. You just have to call the functions, set it up in the code in that main pipe, and you're good to go. Okay, all right. I'm gonna upload this video. I've got a few things I need to do this morning. I'm gonna sit down and drink some coffee, and then I've got some coding I want to do, but then I also want to make the install video so I can show you how we can expand this even more. I do want to go back in and clean this code up because this code to me is pretty dirty. I don't like the way this looks. This does look absolutely confusing with the way that I have it coded without all the little documentation that goes in there. But you can tighten it up if you want. It's however you want to do it. But I wanted to kind of do it like this, and that way it's easy to look at. I want to finish. I want to put some documentation in this, which would be part of the new release. And yeah, we'll start our day. All right. I'm gonna upload this. I hope everybody's having a good day. And I will be back here shortly with some new stuff.